I have the pleasure of introducing Valerie M. Grubb for this session, Leading at the Highest Levels, Tips for Getting Out of the Weeds and Into the C-Suite. Any additional information, check the app. Welcome, Val.
Thank you. All right, hello. It's so nice to be back in Vegas. I'm really looking forward to hanging out. I see lots of friends, always exciting. So we've got a lot to cover today. Anybody who's been in my sessions know that I really like to kind of cram a lot in. So I hope, though, that we will have a chance to do questions at the end. So I'm going to start by defining tactical versus strategic. Then I'm going to talk about, when I think of strategic HR skills, what exactly is that? And finally, then I'll end with getting out of the weeds. So let's think about this idea of tactical versus strategic. So Peter Drucker and Warren Bennis, these are two experts in leadership, defined it. They defined strategy versus tactical in terms of management versus leadership. And they said that management is doing things right, where leadership is doing the right things. So another way to think about it is they said that management, as you climb up the ladder of success in your organization, is making sure that you're doing the right things. To where when we think of leadership, it's about whether or not that ladder is against the right wall. And so as we think about this, it's to-do lists. Where do you spend your time? Do you spend your time in to-do lists, or is it about that you spend enough time looking out at where you're going to make sure that what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is getting you where you need to go? And that's really the key when we think between tactical versus strategic. We want to make sure that we're not so lost in the weeds that we forget about the fact that are we leaning against the right wall? Are we doing the right things? Are we making sure that we're going in a direction that's going to get us where we need to go? Because otherwise, how are you going to know that you got there, right? How are you going to know that you got there? And so can anybody relate to this? Like, you got like the world on your back, the stress on there. The challenge that we have to remember is that when you're under stress, please know that what happens is you default to your checklist. So because you know what it is? It feels like we've got control. Feels like, right? I'm seeing a lot of head nods in there, and we feel like we've got control. The challenge is, what we kind of think is that, God, if I just get these 15 things done, then I'm going to be back on track. My boss is going to be on my case. I'm going to be back at it and able to do it. The challenge is what happens the next day. Oh my God, right? You come in, there's more to do. The 15 turns into 30, that turns into 45 items that are on your list. And then what happens is, guess what? It's June. It's mid-June. First off, how did that happen? I feel like I just went to sleep, woke up, and it's like, I'm in New Orleans, it's like 1,000 degrees. And so that's the challenge, is that when we focus on our to-do list, we lose sight of the longer picture. And so we have to remember that that's what happens when we're under stress. And then the challenge is we just never get to those things that are strategic because we don't have time, because we got this doggone to-do list staring us in the face. And that's what we're going to talk about today, and why this is really this idea that it's about brute forcing your mind. This is about changing your mindset and how you view time, and really kind of coming in and seizing control of your schedule, but also, this is going to be controversial, but I'm going to say it, it's also about letting go. Letting go of perfectionism, letting go of thinking that you will ever catch up, that you will ever be ahead. I know that that's tough to think about because, again, we're that good. We're HR. Are you kidding? We're that hot stuff, but the challenge is that if we want to get into that C-suite, we got to spend time on the strategy. And the to-do list isn't getting us there. It's just not. Now, and we'll talk about this. Now, what I'd like you to think about how you spend your time. When you look at effort that's along the x-axis, you got impact up the y-axis. So what I want you to do is think about your efforts in terms of low to high in effort, but also low to high in impact. Now, that stuff where we want to spend our time is anything that's above that line. So as we're looking here, anything above that line of impact, that's really where we want to spend our time because that has impact to the organization. And so when you think about the time you spend day to day, are you spending 75% of your time in those things that have high impact to the organization? If you're not, then you're caught in this tactical cycle, which means we need to change our mindset and focus differently. And what I want you to do is, what I want you to do is really think about those things that have impact first. And also remember, it's also an impact on your career. So when we think about elevating, getting ourselves, who wants a promotion in here? Who wants a promotion at some point? I got like 8 people, come on. There we go, somebody's jumping up in the back, I like it. You're my people back there. So we also have to think about not just in terms of impact to our organization, but are you working on things that have an impact to your career? Meaning that your boss sees it, that your C-suite sees it. Now, I understand we got to answer benefits questions and stuff like that, but let me tell you, your boss isn't seeing that. So if we spend all of our time in this thankless task of spinning, and we never get to those projects that have major impact, how are we possibly going to get that seat at the table? Because they don't see us as being able to do it, because we're not, because we're stuck in this endless loop of thankless tasks. So focus on things. I want you to think about those 5 things that are going to have the biggest impact to your career, that are going to get you noticed from the C-suite. And I want you to make a commitment. From now, we've got 6.5 months left. I want you to make a commitment to yourself that I'm going to make sure that people understand my greater impact to the organization. And that's not something we're great at. Because you know what? We do a fabulous job behind the scenes, but I'm sorry, that's not enough. It's not enough to be able to get promoted, because they want to be able to see your contribution. So you make a commitment to yourself that you're going to make sure that people know the positive, major impact that you have. All right? I want to see a show of hands. Are you committing to me that for once, you're going to focus on you? It's only 6 months. Nobody panic. Nobody panic. I can see people going, oh, do I have to? Yeah, you do. You do. It's about time. Because if you don't, who is? Who is? Nobody, because everybody else is concerned about themselves, right? And they're going to tout it, and they're going to tell about how great they are. Let's join the ranks of those salespeople who sell themselves all the time about how great they are. So let's join them. Now, what I'm going to do is now thinking about this idea of how to up our strategic game. So I'm going to walk through a series of questions that really are designed to ask, what are you focused on? And if I could tell you that at the end, these 10 things, if you focus on them, you're going to move your game from tactical to strategic. First off, are you developing your company's future? Do you know, have you read your company's 1, 3, 5-year strategic plan? And can you talk to your senior leaders about what's in it? If you cannot, if you haven't read it, first on your list, Because you need to know, you really need to know in order about that long term, about where the organization is going. What products are being delivered, who are the customers that you're going after, because we want you as part of that conversation. So you need to know where the organization is going. Now you look and you go, oh Val, you know what? We don't have a strategic plan. Even better, suggest it. Lead those efforts. Nobody's sitting there telling you that you can't. You keep, again, back to that idea of having impact and making sure people see your impact. You keep knocking on that doggone door until somebody listens to you and you say, look, I have an idea about doing this one-year strategic plan. Here are some articles. Here are some ideas on how to do that. Now, the great thing is at the end, I've got a QR code. It's got 3 or 4 articles in there on how to do this, if this is something that you've not led before. Another idea, who's done a SWOT on your company? Ooh, a lot of love for the SWOT in here. Where were these people yesterday, right, Nicole? Let me tell you, as we're going over project management. So what's S? W? O? T? Good, just checking to make sure nobody's falling asleep after lunch. Excellent, exactly. Have you done a SWOT on your company? Do you know your internal strengths and weaknesses and the opportunities and threats that are potentially outside of the organization that you can either take advantage of versus your competitors, or the fact that they're threats that we have to come in and make sure that we're paying attention to. So it's that, by doing that SWOT, and by the way, do that on your people. Again, this is a great strategic leadership thing that you can lead in order to help your company and show your impact of being more strategic. That you deserve that seat in that room when they're talking strategy, because you're leading the way. Now, who's done gap? Gap analysis on your organizations? Exactly, a little bit, all right, interestingly, more SWOT than gap. Normally it's the other way around. So we did that, as an example, I helped to found the Oxygen Channel. And we did a gap analysis of the amount of female-centric television programming, female-centric television programming that was available on TV, and we determined that there was enough that we could count, that there was enough of a dearth. There wasn't any, really. It was BET had a little bit, Lifetime, you're killing your husbands, you got all that covered. Lifetime had that covered. And so we said, let's provide something else. Don't record that, sir. No, just kidding. So we had that, and we used gap analysis to figure that out. So gap analysis is what you can do to compare your benefits. You can compare you can compare everything within HR, but also you use it to compare what you're offering now at your organization versus customers, versus what your product offering. So that's the exciting thing, is being involved in that conversation, leading that conversation. Will come back to help you get out of the weeds and into the C-suite, which is exactly what we're looking for. And these questions that I'm going to talk about, if you're close to getting in the C-suite, these are going to push you over to the edge. But if you're working your way up, these will also help you, because understand it's about leading from the chair that you are in right now. It's about leading from wherever you are. And I don't need a title. What I need is an attitude. I need a mindset. And yes, you need your boss's support. If they're like a jerk, get out. The Great Resignation is for you too. Don't record that either. So it is about this opportunity that, like I said, if they don't let you in there, you keep kicking down that door. That doesn't work? Go find someplace else that does want your brains and wants your smarts. Now, do you think in terms of short term, that to-do list is stopping you from thinking in terms of long term? It just is. Now, what I want, now again, I love a good to-do list. I just love it. But it has to be in support of longer term goals. And we need to be able to map that every time we do something. We need to be looking at the long-term ramifications and asking ourselves, is the ladder against the right wall? And the decisions that you need to make today, what I want you to talk to your boss about is, here's the decision that I want to make today. Here are the anticipated ramifications a year from now and 3 years from now. That's what I want to hear. And I want you to attach money to it. I want you to be able to talk in terms of finance about ramifications. Every time you ask for approval for something, do not just talk about today, because I want to set in your boss's mind that you are thinking about the future, that you are thinking about the long term, and it gets them thinking, oh, Val knows what she's talking about. Wow, Val's thinking about the future as well. When we're having futuristic conversations, I need Val in the room because she's already thinking about that. So talk in terms of today, but always take that in terms of 1 to 3 years. Next, do you know your customers? Let me give you a little secret right here. You do not have a business if you don't have customers. You can have the greatest product in the entire planet. If nobody buys it, it doesn't matter. So you need to understand who those customers are, because guess what? They're also people. And you know people. You know people. So data on people is going to help you and help your senior leaders figure out how to get more customers. One thing we did at Oxygen, we sold advertising to our local, to folks who we were doing business with. We gave them a huge discount. All it was doing was so that I could come back and say that I was helping with the bottom line with customers. And I'm bringing in money. What's stopping you from doing the same? They want to support you because you're, as you do well, they'll continue to get money from you. And it also helps to build the link between you and your vendors. Again, maybe that you look at that and you go, oh no, we work in government, we can't do that. Totally got it, then don't. But if you can, why not at least ask the question? How many of you spend time with your sales and customer support people? You cannot help. You do? Excellent. Double down on that. Because let me tell you, your customer, even they may be so annoying, so entitled, so anointed. So anointed. I get it, but they are helping your company. No sales, as frustrating as it is, no sales, no business. So at Oxygen, I would go in, and this was when we were all in the office, I would go and spend a week about every 6 weeks that I would sit in their office, because I didn't want them thinking every time I walked when I walked through their halls, oh God, Val's here. Who's she firing? Who's going on? Is she looking at me? Is she looking at me? No. All right, let's just look down. Oh, I gotta go. We don't want that. I want, when people are having discussions about long term, I want people to say, oh my God, we need that Val in here. So by spending a week in there, it takes the scary out. It takes the scary out. And I'm sorry, I want salespeople singing my praises to the C-suite at all times, because they are closest to the customer. What can you do to help customer service? What can you do to help sales? Everything you do or don't do will affect them and affects your ability to have money to spend it on all the beautiful things that HR does day in and day out. So get to know who your customers are. Know who those top 10 customers are. Because I'll tell you, if you have that attitude, they're going to have you in the room. They're going to have you in the room when they're negotiating deals, because you can read the customers. You can read people. And that's the viewpoint that, again, you're showing your worth. Do you know who your competitors are? Do you know who your competitors are? Understand that it's people. Are you leading your customers, or are you following? Like, are competitors coming after you, following you, or are you playing catch up with them? We know that it's our people who are going to come up with ideas. That and AI, Chat GP. So, right, those are the two people who are going to come up with ideas for our competitors or for new innovations. But the key is if we are leading or are we following? So the key is that we want to make sure that we're doing what we can in order to help our employees be leaders in the competition. Things like sustainability, things like those are areas that we should be leading. There's no reason that sustainability needs to be somebody else. Like that's the world right now is looking at sustainability. So why not lean into that to see where that makes sense for your organization? If they're not, raise your hand. Get up there and be that leader, and that's what's going to get you into that room. Constantly be innovating, and innovating up and out. Up and out to customers, up and out to your employees so you can win against your competition. That's what it's about, and it's your employees who are going to innovate. Are you promoting a culture and doing everything you can to help create an environment where people can lead the competition? Can you speak finances? You have to be able to read a balance sheet and a P&L. Like, let me just tell you right now, if you cannot, that is the first thing that has to be on your list. And you have to be able to connect expenses, revenues, people, all of that to exactly what happens on a balance sheet and your P&L. Because what I want you to be figuring out, if you add more people, did it result in our cost per head going up or down? And what did we want it to do? So again, we think of like dumping people at it, but this is where, if we can look at our sales per head to figure out, and cost per head, about where we may have some inefficiencies. There's no reason why you can't lead that conversation. But you got to be able to speak. You got to be able to understand that balance sheet and be able to look at that P&L. It is shocking. As much as I hate to say this, it's really shocking at how many people get to senior levels and they really can't connect all the dots. They know how much they're spending. Please understand that they know how much they're spending. They have a budget. They know how much they're making. They know how much they're spending. But they can't come in and connect people to what we're spending, people to sales. You can do that. The great thing is if you look at this, you go, oh, Val, I was terrible at math. You don't need math. You got a calculator on your phone, for goodness sakes. You got Excel. You got a lot of finance people who do all that math. What I need you to do is understand value. That's what I need you to understand, is the value that's brought in, so that when you bring more people in, you can look and have a conversation about the value you're getting out from more people being added. Know those finances. You get involved in that right now. So we need to read beyond HR. Folks who have more of a business knowledge and just industry in general are better at innovating. Anybody remember, anybody have Netflix? Netflix, yeah, that Reed Hastings had nothing to do. You know how he started it? He had a Blockbuster. He had a video that had like $2,000 in overages. And he's like, there's got to be a better way at getting videos. That's his story. So he didn't know anything about video. He didn't know anything about distribution. But what he knew was that having a $2,000 overage on a video was a problem. How about anybody been in an Uber? Now that I understand that Kalanick guy or whatever is that. I understand he's like a complete HR nightmare. So, which is why he was ousted. But he didn't know anything about this. He was just looking for the fact that he couldn't get a cab. And so he came up with this idea. And so this is how having broad business sense and business knowledge and industry understanding can help you, because you never know where that next idea is going to come from. You may be reading your local paper, reading the New York Times, or reading something online that may go, let me bring this in. Have we thought of this? It's also just understanding, if you're in transportation, you need to understand everything about unmanned vehicles that's going on. It's also about energy. Like, let me tell you, if you can have trucks that run 24/7, they are unmanned, and that during the day they can recharge based on the energy from the sun, that is a game changer. So what are the tangential things that your business is involved with that would be good, that may come back and be exactly what sparks you from your competition? Read beyond just HR. A CHRO would most definitely know that and do that. Now, this is very tough, and I get this. You will never have 100% of the information to make decisions. You just won't. And understand that the more senior you get in your journey, that gets less and less. And you have to make decisions. Not making a decision is a decision. And it is about understanding that we have to be in a position where we can take lots of inputs and move and make decisions quickly, so that your organization does not get run over. Does not get run over. Who had a BlackBerry? Oh, don't you miss your BlackBerry? I'm sorry. Love that BlackBerry. I still mourn it. And those dudes from Shrm sat in a room and said, "Oh no, people aren't going to want their phone with their email. They're not going to want other things. They're not going to want to get to the internet." How'd that decision work out? They never should have let Apple smoke them. They had the U.S. government, for goodness sakes. How can you possibly lose the U.S. government? And yet they did, because they didn't continue to innovate. They made decisions, they made wrong decisions. So we've got to be, and I hear that, and that's scary, but they chose not to move forward and saying that where we are right now is as good as it gets. And that's not working out so well for them now. So we have to be able to make tough decisions. Do you inspire people, or do you inspire them to update their LinkedIn profile and get the heck out of your company? Sorry, I didn't mean to give you a nightmare there. I know. We have to be in a position, like back to this whole Shrm idea. Like, we have to constantly be innovating. We just have to. Look at Facebook. Facebook, thing of the past. 55 and older use Facebook. Now it is Instagram. I know, I'm like, I got old somewhere. Now it is Instagram took its place, and now TikTok. Like it's just like technology is moving so quickly, and we have to be in that group that innovates. Are we leading innovation efforts? Things like driving decisions down to their lowest level. And I know that can be challenging. We get those senior folks up there and they just can't quite let go. We got to keep beating on them in order to push that lower to help with innovation. Because if all decisions have to be made at the top, you're not going to be able to keep up. You're not going to be going fast enough. So keep pushing that innovation down, driving it. I think of it like a zit. You squeeze it from both sides to get it up. Squeeze down from decisions and you squeeze up on their end. You're going to remember that later on. Forever I'm going to be the zit lady. But we want to squeeze from both ends. Like we need it to come from both ends so that again, we don't lose out on opportunities. We want folks at all levels feeling like they're in an environment where they listen and where people really value that input and value that opportunity to innovate. And the challenge is if they don't, what are they going to do? Leave. They're going to go somewhere else that does value their innovation, their input. Do you lead change? I know that this is hard. So look, change is hard. We can't predict it. It's like a nightmare. It's all the time. But it's not slowing down. And it is not somebody else's problem. This is us who constantly need to be on that forefront because we know that our people get crazy in the midst of change, that it's scary. And so we have to be comfortable and out there leading this so that we can keep our employees around and that we can be seen as those change leaders, those thought leaders. And that's what's going to come in and get us to a point where we're at those top levels because of the fact that change is the one thing that has to happen all the time. To go back to that Netflix example. Who had a Blockbuster card? Who still has that Blockbuster card in their wallet? They were in, do you realize when Blockbuster in their heyday, they were in everybody's homes. They had full saturation. It was the only way to really get a video. Because I remember HBO was too expensive. HBO was on or just coming out. Like it was really expensive to get cable TV. And particularly to get anything that had movies in it. And so Blockbuster was in full saturation in our homes. And what'd they do? They stopped leading change and instead let Netflix come in and give them an alternative. By the time Blockbuster got into the game, it was too late. It was too late, and now there's one, and it's a bed and breakfast. That's it, yeah. It's in Bend, Oregon. There's one left, and I think they're not sure. They didn't hear that everybody else closed, but, or maybe they did, because now it's a bed and breakfast, and it's all nostalgia. But isn't that incredible to have that much saturation? Like companies dream of that sort of saturation, and yet they stop changing. They stop leading. We can't do that. And I get it, folks. I know we have just been through like a couple years, 3 years that have just been a nightmare. I get it. I know you're tired. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself so that you can get back on that horse and start charging and leading change again. Can you influence others? I'm not asking, do people like you? I want to know, which liking is great. Liking is part of it. I can tell you that because we listen to people that we like, but it's also about respect. Do people respect you, and do you communicate in such a way and so well that people want to follow you, that people are influenced by you? That's what I want to know. It's not about, liking's important, but I need them to be influenced by you. And that's why we have to get out of our offices. We need everybody who can to know us. I want to lead great communications so that everything that comes out is spotless. I want to talk about things like change and all of the things that we just talked about so that it's going to get people to follow us. Because let me tell you, leaders have followers. If we question that, think of Jack Immelt. Do you remember him? Jeff Immelt. Followed Jack Welch after GE. Dude was there a year. He had the title and was dumped out. Why? Because he didn't have influence. He didn't have influence. Bob Chapek, Disney, just got ousted by Bob Iger because he didn't have influence and couldn't get people to follow him on this new path. So that all that is that we've got to lead in a way that makes people want to come in and go, you know what, I don't know quite what Val's doing, but I know her and trust her. I'm going to follow her. Are we doing what we can to make sure that we're trustworthy, that's going to help people be to a position where they're pulled to us like this magnet shows? Or do people run when they see us coming? Do people run when they see us coming? When people think of HR, do they have happy thoughts or do they have negative thoughts? What's the one process that HR that drives your employees crazy or drives your CEO crazy? What can you do to get rid of that pain? What can you do to lead change, to help influence, to get rid of that pain? Because if it's not helping, it's hurting your influence. It's hurting your influence. All right, here are these 10 listed. Lead strategic planning process. Speak in terms of long-term focus. Know your customers, know your competitors, and your competitive landscape. Learn how your company makes a profit. Understand the business landscape beyond just HR. Learn to make decisions, inspire others. Don't wait to lead change, and be somebody who people want to follow. I'll give you 30 seconds. Where do you need to focus? Where do you need to focus? Let's hear it. Yell it out. All right. Double down right now. Your homework walking out of here. This is your focus list. This is your focus list. Finance should be at the top of this list if you cannot read financials. That should be at the top of the list, and then figure out what makes sense in your business and where you have influence. Next, let's get out of the weeds. Maybe painful to hear. Let's take responsibility. You're where you're at based on what you've done to now. So understand, if you're in the weeds, that's your responsibility. You've gotten yourself there, but that's all right. You could choose to change that, but let's just take responsibility that it's you who have accepted to be in the weeds by saying yes just a few more times than you should have. So what I want you to do is understand your motivations. Are you somebody who can say no? Are you somebody who says yes just way too many times? And then you come back and you go, why did I just do that? Why did I say yes to that? There's no part of me that was meant to say yes. And I get it. Look, I'm sorry, I do the exact same thing. Like, I feel you 100%. But the key is so we got to understand what our motivations are. That, you know what, I like to be somebody who's a problem solver. Something I'm really good at. I'm a great number 2. I'm not a CEO material. I'm most definitely COO material. Like, I'll tell you, I can make crazy stuff happen. I won't be able to think of it. But I can come in and make like really crazy stuff happen. Because I can see how to make stuff in the clouds end up being in a day-to-day thing. Like, that's a skill set that I have. So I have to watch, because of that problem solving, that when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I've got this problem, oh, let me help you. What can I help you with? The challenge, though, is then we're caught up in that to-do list, and we never get out of it. We never get out of it. Push people to others. Do not automatically say yes. In fact, you know what? I want to hear right now, no! I think we got better in this. Let me count down to 3. I want to hear a no. 1, 2, 3. No! Felt weird, didn't it? Now let's remember that when you go back in. You just said it with me. I want to hear that. Oh, they're shutting the doors on us. Yeah. I want to hear you say, and if you're not comfortable saying no, I can understand that. So what I would like you to say instead is, gosh, you know what? My plate is full right now because you put priorities on me. Can I get back to you? Can I get back to you? Now, the challenge is that a lot of times it's hard to get back to somebody and then say no. So just think about that. Just think about that before you do it. Understand, nothing takes 5 minutes. Nothing takes 5 minutes. Everything that you do will take longer than that, take longer to research it. It'll take 5 minutes to write the email, and then to reread it, and then to send it out. So we have to be in a position where I understand that we like to solve problems and we like to be in the middle of stuff. But we got to understand, we got to fight that. We have to fight that in ourselves and say that we have to solve the right problems. As you have moved up in your organization, have you or had people work for you, are you still holding on to things that you used to do? Or did we delegate them? Did we farm those rascals out? But you know what, I kind of like doing this, so I'm going to keep that. I'm going to give everything else away, but I'm going to hold on to this because I like it. And maybe it's the sexy part of HR, and we're not going to give that away. We're going to give the dregs away to folks who work for us. We have to let go. We have got to let go as you move up that organization and understand the difference between what I should be doing and what somebody more junior to me is. Part of the challenge of not letting, of why we keep in the weeds is because we don't understand what strategy looks like. You now have the formula to strategy. You know if you are a director or above, I can tell you right now, half your time minimum should be spent on strategy. Even if you're lower, even if you have a manager title, coordinator, you're just starting out, your time should be spent in strategy as well. If nothing else, thinking long term about things. Start that right now. So we have to make a decision, or a distinction, I should say, between what I'm working on and what somebody else is working on. Next, your priorities. This starts with when you put your priorities together. What I want you to look at, what is top on your list, is strategy. What are the strategic things? What are those big things that you put on your plate January 1st? And now it's the middle of June, and you haven't started it because we've been in checklist hell. What is that? Pardon my language. Pardon my language. Pardon my language. We've been in checklist heck. So, much better. We have to start our priority list with the big stuff. Did anybody see that? Remember that? Who's that dude? Stephen Covey. How he has you put all that sand in the, you put a sand, you got 2 buckets here. Put all the sand in the bucket, and then you're trying to jam, and he has these rocks that say things like work and play and all this, and you try to jam it in there with the sand. Problem is you can't get it in there because you're focused on all that small stuff. However, if you put all of the big rocks in there in a bucket first, and then pour the sand over top of it, it fills in all the crevices. That is still very relevant today because we should start with those big rocks, those big projects that are on our plate. That's what you should think about first in terms of your priority. Then the small stuff fills in. Set boundaries. This is not about what's in front of your face. It is about what is important. Set those meetings first. Set critical meetings first. Set critical meetings first. Then overlay your big priorities. Then put in there block time on your calendar for when you are at your peak for those big strategic issues. Then you fill in all this little stuff in. Who's a morning person here? A lot of morning people. I'm amongst my people. Time zone, exactly. Is it working for you now? Better or worse here? All right, all right. So the key here is, I'm a morning person. I get up in the morning, I check email for anything critical. I do not, and you know what I do? I close it down. What? I close that down, because otherwise it's 2 hours, hour and a half that's gone by in answering emails that weren't critical, but it was easy. It was easy. And I have just spent critical time when I could be focused on really important strategic stuff that's going to move my business. That's what I close down email and focus when I am at my peak, because I get the big, mean, nasty stuff out. It's kind of like if you want to pay off, that Susie Orman. She's kind of crazy, I think, but the girl knows money. Let me just say that. The woman knows money. She says that if you're paying off big debt, you don't pay your small bills first. What you do is you pay a chunk on a big debt. You pay $5,000 on that big debt or whatever it is. And then what happens is you will adjust your lifestyle so that you can meet all of the smaller bills. So you may not buy that latte, you may not go out to that dinner, because you will adjust to meet everything else. But if you pay your bills first, and then you're going to pay it with whatever money's left over, it's only about $1,000, because I need to go to that dinner, I need to buy that latte, I need to do those other pieces. So pay your big bills first. Pay your big projects first, then squeeze in that other stuff. And we have to be ruthless. One thing I used to do when we were in the office, when I was working on big stuff, I'll tell you, I go hide, because everybody wants to stop by and say hello. And I kind of like it. Kind of like it when they do. I feel like I learn more about what's going on. I know a little bit more, but that's not helping me get my big rocks done. It's not helping me getting the big projects done. And that's the problem, is that we have to change up our mindset. If you want to change your relationship with time, then you have to do something different. So we have to set boundaries. We have to truly start seizing control of our schedule. Develop your team. If you have a team, we tell others that they have to do feedback and they have to coach. We have to lead by example on this. We have to lead. If you have people working for you, what I want you to do is drill them with more to do, not less. You get them with more to do and help build their skills so that they can take more off your plate. If they're terrible, cut them, because understand that you're judged by your staff. So if you have somebody on your staff who's not carrying their weight, then you follow your own procedures and get rid of them. Otherwise, you give feedback and you develop them to get them up, to get their skills up. Because all that does, the more they can take on, the more you can focus on other things. It's like a fabulous. And what I would say, go after other people. Go after other people. Get help. Ask that receptionist if she's interested in help. What about, I used to go after any assistant possible, because they're looking to try to figure out what's next for them. So go ask for help. Get your vendors. It is easier to pay an extra $1,000 a year than to hire headcount, because it comes into a different pool of money. $1,000 in expenses. Ask your vendors if they have ability to help with benefits questions, or what's the goofy stuff that you're involved in that we can get you out of so that you got more time to focus on strategy. Because we got to get out of those thankless tasks, right? So we got to find help. Use your vendors. Get that approved, and then be accountable for it. Get other departments to do stuff that they should. And I know, and guess what? We cannot, I know, a lot of anger right there. I just felt the room go cold. And I understand they're not going to want to do it. Don't do it for them. Let them fail. The conversation is, what are you working on And somebody said this yesterday in my project management class that I thought was really brilliant. They said, what are you, have a conversation. If finance doesn't want to do what they need to do, ask them, what are you doing instead? Like, what is a priority instead of you doing the stuff that you're doing, instead of me covering for you? So what are you doing instead? That's a good conversation to have, because of the fact that if they're truly working on something that month-end close or something that's truly hot, then all right, maybe I'll do it this one time, but I won't do it next month. Maybe it's quarter close that they're doing. Like, have a conversation about what's stopping them from doing their business, from doing what they should do. And then understand, is it something temporary, or is it the fact that they just don't want to do it? Because that is, armed with that information, it is now a different conversation that you're going to have with your boss about the fact that these people need to do their job. These people need to do their job, because in the absence of them doing it, I'm not being able to do these things which will bring more strategic value. This is a conversation to have. And when you have that conversation with your C-suite, make sure to put money in that, and saying that because finance or whomever isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, it is stopping me from doing this, which is costing us this. Your C-suite thinks in terms of money. Hit them back with money. Hit them where it hurts, in their wallet. In the wallet. Let it go, folks. Let go of perfectionism. Let go of being able to get everything done. You won't. You can't. You can't. You have to learn to be okay with that. But we have to prioritize the stuff that really, really matters. And then we got to let all the other stuff go. I read something the other day that HR has like the highest concentration of perfectionists in it. And I thought, what a smart statistic. Then I thought, well, we're just that good, but, well, all right, it's not, but it's costing us. It's costing us our health. It's costing us our ability to get things done. So please let it go. Finally, stop any self-destructive behaviors. Please stop beating yourself up. Please stop treating yourself worse than you would ever allow any of your employees to do to somebody else. We ruminate because we're perfectionists. We need to stop that self-destructive behavior because it's not helpful. And it's a lie. It's wrong. That self-destructive voice in your head is wrong. Stop her or him right now. You are good enough. You can do this. We just have to approach our mindset differently and approach it in a way that we take control of what we're working on. Now, I've got 5 minutes left. We have 3 microphones here, here, and here. 3 microphones. I'd love to take any questions. By the way, I've got tons of goodies up here. If you're interested, you can download that code, and I've got how to do strategic plans. I've got how to do a gap, SWOT, like just tons of sources. I got a great article in there on when your CEO speaks strategy, how 70% of your company doesn't know what he's talking about, what he or she is talking about. I'm like, is that just on strategy? All right, so we have someone here with a question. So again, I've got 4 minutes. Please be quiet if you're heading out, and let's use this time. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Valerie. This was great. Thank you so much. I recently changed jobs. Well, I was promoted from CFO to CEO.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! I want to come work for this girl.
So I live in the numbers. I've managed and was responsible for both HR, strategy, all of those things.
Yep.
So I would ask you, if that were you and you were moving from a CFO position to a CEO, so still in the C-suite, what would your priority be, and how would you manage the transition?
Well, your role is completely different. Like, understand that as a CEO, you are responsible for the entire company now.
It's in a mid-sized nonprofit.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. You're responsible for the success of this organization. So you need to hire, somebody else has got to do this money and watch the money on a day-to-day basis. Now, you're going to have those conversations, but now you need to be focused on bringing money in, marketing, getting your message out there, because that's what's going to grow your organization. So let somebody else focus on the day-to-day money. Let that CFO stuff go. And I know, I can feel it. Let me hold my hand. Hold my hand. I feel she's like, no, Val. No, you got to let that day-to-day money go.
You just told everybody they need to lean into the financials. So how does the finance?
But you're the CEO. That's different. If you want to be a CHRO, a lot of folks don't understand money like you do.
Right.
A lot. You're not. We can probably count on one hand how many people were a CFO and going into a CHRO position.
No, CEO. I'm not.
Right, but I'm just saying for folks here. Yeah.
Got it.
So you gotta focus on the running of the organization. It's about money,
Right.
marketing, getting your message out there, and then of course in conjunction with the CFO, holding your money standing.
Right.
But you really got to sell, particularly in nonprofit. CEOs are all about sales.
Right.
All about sales, all about that marketing.
Thank you.
Get the money, baby. Get the money.
Thank you.
Exactly. All right, folks. Oh, we got one more question. How about if we do this? Because I feel the crowd is restless to leave. I feel the crowd is restless. I'm going to take one more question. I'm not running out of here, but I'll take her question, and then I'll come down here. But everybody, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. Thank you. And what's your question, my dear? What's your question?
So not necessarily a question, more of a perspective, I guess. So when you're making these steps, of course, we're all attending all of these classes.
Yep.
We're doing all of the learning that we can. And I'm constantly trying to make sure I'm doing the right thing to get me where I want to go.
Yep.
My biggest challenge, I think, is with imposter syndrome. And all of a sudden, you're ready to have a conversation with your CEO about how maybe leadership isn't as engaged as you want them to be. And I just kind of get vertigo. And I think, am I really the right person to do this? And how do I approach this? And so what do you do about that confidence?
Yeah.
And when you start feeling that, how do you make sure that you're ready to make that next step?
Well, a couple things. Number one, I would most definitely watch some videos. Have you seen any videos from Amy Cuddy? Amy Cuddy, Cuddy, has these videos on taking up space. And all it is how to psych yourself out when you get into this imposter syndrome. And they are exercises that you can do before you, by the way, I went into the restroom and did them, where you go in there and you take up a women power pose, exactly. Power pose, and you take up space. All it's doing is expanding your brain and getting your brain out of that negative spiral and coming back and giving you tools that says, I can do this. By breathing in, I've got this. Breathing out, let it go. I've got this, let it go. Let my concerns go. So I would suggest watching some Amy Cuddy videos. If you also want to send me an email, I've got some exercises on being powerful that I can shoot through to you. But it's breathing exercises, and it's also imagining a point when you were powerful. And that's what I want you to think about before you walk into the CEO suite. All right, folks, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.